Hello everyone. Today in the chapter The Rise of Nationalism in Europe, I'm going to tell you about the making of nationalism in Europe, the second point of your book, which covers page number 8 to page number 12. That has got 4 points. 2.1, the aristocracy and the new middle class, which came into existence and which was visible those days. Then I will be talking about what did liberal nationalism stand for, because nationalism was divided by that time into three categories. Three category of the people were seen in the society, in the European society. Those who gave rise, those who gave their ideas about the nationalism. So the liberals were there, the conservatives were there, and the revolutionaries were there. So we will be talking about all these points in this point number 2. Before that, I would like to tell you again the recap. After the Napoleonic Wars from 1804 to 1815, Napoleon was the ruler in France, and he followed the policy of expansion. During his wars, he captured many countries, many territories, many monarchs were there. Those territories were captured, and after the Napoleonic Wars, when they came to a closure in the second decade of 19th century, the great powers of Europe, here they are visible. Britain was there, Prussia was there, Russia was there, Austria was there. So all these powers, they started planning for the post-war world, what it should be. To bring about a balance of power in Europe and prevent further conflict, they developed what became known as the Concert of Europe, beginning with the Congress of Vienna. There was they came together in the Congress of Vienna in 1815. The representative of the European powers, Britain, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, met in Vienna to draw up a settlement that is known as Congress of Vienna. So, what was Congress of Vienna? Once again, the Congress of Vienna dissolved the Napoleonic world and attempted to restore the monarchies Napoleon had overthrown. So, the monarchies which were captured, the areas which were captured by Napoleon, were again came to the to restore their own lands. The Congress was first occasion in history where, on a continental scale, on a big scale, on a collective scale, national representatives came together to formulate treaties instead of relying mostly on messages between the several capitals. The Concert of Europe, despite later changes and diplomatic breakdowns, a few decades later formed the basic framework and for the European international politics until the outbreak of the First World War. So it lasted. The Congress of Vienna and its provisions lasted till the till the First World War. Okay. So when we are talking about the making of nationalism in Europe, Germany, Italy, and Switzerland were divided into kingdoms. This I already have discussed in the first video too. This is a just recap. Duchies and cantons whose rulers had their autonomous territories. So, if you talk about the European society that time, on the whole, the society was divided into two different society. Basically, the aristocracy was there, and the new middle class was there, and the peasants were there. Okay, aristocrats were the people, those who were dominant and in the continent, and politically and socially they were very strong. And majority of the population was peasants. And industrialization began in England. That was the time, and second half of the 18th century, new social groups came into existence. A working class population, because of the industrial revolution, factory workers were there. They only made the middle class, and businessmen were there, professionals were there. So we talk about if we talk about the society was basically divided into two. So this is the way how the people started talking about. Now, the restructuring of the society, liberal nationalism, conservatism, and revolutionaries were there. Okay. So now let us understand what was the term liberal. The liberalism derives from the Latin root liber, meaning free. So liberals talked about a free society. The right to vote and to get elected was generated exclusively to property owning men. Men without property and all women were excluded from the political rights. From 1789 itself, there was a rule that people, those who have the property, only can be allowed, only were allowed to vote, right? So that time, the society was that people were not given the right to vote, only the property people were given the right to vote. Okay, so in 1834, a customs union or Zollverein was formed at the initiative of Prussia and joined by most of the Germans. Okay, so the union abolished tariff barriers and reduced the number of currencies from over 30 to 2. Okay, because n number of currencies were there all over. So all the currencies, like 28 currencies, were dissolved, they were reduced, and only two currencies were prominent, were popular in whole Europe. Okay, so this is the way how in society only aristocrat and peasantries were there. Aristocrats were less in population, they were high dominating people, they were the landlords and had all rights, whereas peasantries were more in population, they were the low class people, and they were suppressed class also, if you say. In between, a middle class also came into existence, that those peoples were educated, doctors, professionals were included in that, and they demanded liberal nationalism. Okay, so these were the people, those who thought of having voting rights for everyone. It should not be based on the property and all. So liberal nationalism basically was individual freedom, equality before the law, government by the consent, and freedom of markets. These were the demands of the liberal nationalists. Here also you can see national sovereignty, then the form of government that each nation prefers, that should be a free government, independent nation states with the clearly defined borders should be there, and population with a common history, language, and culture should create a nation and well integrated society. So we can conclude with the term that the Napoleonic Wars gave an idea of nationalism. Then there was a new conservatism. What was that? You need to understand. In 1815, European governments were driven by a spirit of conservatism. These were the people, those who thought that they believed in monarchy, the church, the social hierarchies, and property and that of the family should be preserved. They believed in that. So they were half of the thing. Like they believed in the church also, they believed in the monarchy also, they believed in the social hierarchy also. But at the same time, they wanted a modern army, an efficient bureaucracy, a dynamic economy. Then they believed in the abolition of feudalism and serfdom, and they thought that serfdom could strengthen the autocratic monarchies of Europe. So in a nutshell, we can say Austria, Russia, and Britain joined hands to defeat Napoleon in Battle of Waterloo, and that brought great change. So these conservatives believed European government wanted to preserve the traditional institutions and society in France. This resulted to the Treaty of Vienna in 1815, and conservatives believed that it was the Treaty of Vienna, it was the hard work of traditional governments, it was the hard work of Britain, it was the hard work of Britain, Prussia, Russia, that they got freedom from the clutches of Napoleon. So ultimately they believed that conservatism should be there. Okay, they believed in the conservative kind of society. They believed that the monarchies should remain. They believed that monarchies should be a part of the culture. So this is figure number 6 given in your book. This is explaining absolute conservatism. What they believed, the most important question of today's meeting, it is written here. This is the question: how long will thinking be allowed to us? कितनी देर तक हम अपने आप सोच सकते हैं? That is given, and in a board list of the agenda is given. Silence is the first commandment of this learned society. People were educated, so you have to remain silent, and you will be given a muzzle. A muzzle will be distributed to the members upon entering, and you have to keep a muzzle, and you cannot speak much. So this explains that there was a lot of a contradiction between the two, how a monarchy and how a freedom. So conservative ideas were a mixture of liberal and the radical ideas, the change. Okay, so the Bourbon dynasty was restored to power, and France lost the territories it had annexed under the Napoleon. Then the third part of the society was revolutionaries, and it was revolutionaries only those who formed young movements, as we talked about in France. Many Jacobin clubs were formed by the students. So the revolutionaries they spreaded a staunch nationalist idea. They opposed the Treaty of Vienna, and they fought for the freedom. Amongst them, the Young Italy movement was started by Giuseppe Mazzini, and these were the secret societies in the very beginning, but later on they came into forefront. The Italian revolutionary Giuseppe Mazzini, born in Genoa in 1807, founded two more underground societies. First, Young Italy in Marseilles, and second, he found Young Europe in Bern, whose members were like-minded young men from Poland, France, Italy, and German states. So ultimately, when we talk about the development of the revolutions, these young Italy or young German movement, those who brought the unification of Italy as well as the unification of Germany. Okay, so these were the young movements of youngsters, those who brought a lot of change to the society, and ultimately these changes only, young Italy and young Europe movements, these changes brought independence and brought unification to Italy and Germany both. Okay, so this was all about the nationalism which spreaded in Europe.